In my past life, my live-in husband died protecting me from an arrow. On his deathbed, he swore he would die for me 100 times without regret, asking only that I be kind to his parents, brother, and sister. Consumed by guilt, I gave his parents a life of luxury and promised his siblings wealth and prosperity. Yet, as my own life faded, I learned that my husband had faked his death and escaped. He was living in the South with his childhood sweetheart, with a son and a daughter of their own. And his family, who had been poisoning me, were merely waiting for me to take my last breath before bringing his new family of 4 back to the capital, to seize my family's entire fortune and enjoy the fruits of my demise. My hatred was inextinguishable. I sent his entire family to the underworld in a blaze of fire. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the day he faked his death. The moment the arrow fell, I plunged a poisoned hairpin deep into his chest and twisted it viciously. In this life, my husband would certainly not die a peaceful death, and his wolf-hearted family would not live an easy life. Ambush. Protect the young lady and master. Amidst the guards' panicked cries, I realized I had been reborn on the very day my live-in husband, Samuel, had faked his death. In my previous life, on this day, Samuel had, amidst the guards' shouts, thrown himself in front of my carriage, without a thought for his own life. He was struck in the abdomen by a poisoned arrow that seemed to fall from the sky. By the time we returned to our estate, the poison had seeped into his bones, and he was beyond saving. I was overcome with grief, but he held my hand with a calm expression, his voice full of devotion. "Don't cry. Your tears will break my heart. You know I love you deeply. For you, I would willingly die 100 times. My only regret is that I cannot fulfill my duty to my parents, that I cannot be the one to shelter my brother and sister from the storm. Harper, I beg you, after I die, do not grieve. Be kind to my family. Will you promise me? Don't let me die with regrets." I tearfully agreed, and he closed his eyes for the last time. For the rest of my life, I could never let go, never stop grieving. I did everything in my power to be a filial daughter to his parents, providing them with a life of luxury they had never known. I spared no expense to pave the way for his brother's career and used my connections to secure a good marriage for his sister. All so he could rest in peace. Finally, at the age of 30, I collapsed before his memorial tablet, my heart broken, and fell gravely ill. Just as I was hoping to reunite with Samuel in the afterlife, a misdelivered letter revealed the truth. Samuel had never died. After faking his death, he had been living in the South with his childhood sweetheart, Serena, with a son and daughter. They lived in luxury, surrounded by servants, spending my family's money and living a life of leisure. They called me that foolish money bag, laughing at how I had cried my eyes out over a piece of wood, calling me utterly stupid. They even cursed me, hoping the poison would soon reach my organs so I would die and be done with. Only then did I realize that even my failing body was the result of the poison, administered by Samuel's parents, brother and sister. Hatred burned through me, giving me the strength to host one last grand family banquet. Samuel's family thought I was going to hand over my family's entire fortune to them, so they could bring his new family of 4 from the South, take over my home, and live out their lives in luxury. But as they drank the drugged wine, they collapsed one by one. I did not let them die easily. I had them tied up and forced to kneel in the courtyard. Only when they were all fully awake did I toss a torch onto their oil-soaked bodies. I sat quietly in the courtyard, a teacup in hand, and watched coldly as the flames consumed them. I listened to their desperate pleas and agonizing screams until there was only silence. After their charred bones were thrown to the dogs in the mass graves, their family was finally reunited in the underworld. Unfortunately, my own illness was incurable. Before the news of their demise could reach me from the South, I took my last breath. I never thought I would get another chance. Watching Samuel's panicked face as he rushed towards me, I hid the cold smile on my lips. In this life, he would certainly not die a peaceful death, and his wolf-hearted family would not live an easy life. Harper, look out. As if he had eyes in the back of his head, Samuel threw himself on top of me just as the arrow whistled through the air, perfectly playing the part of a man who would die for me. But as the arrow pierced his flesh, the hairpin hidden in my sleeve plunged into his chest with all my might. He spat out a mouthful of blood and collapsed into my arms. Harper, you. Ah. His gaze fell to my hand, which was gripping the arrow and pushing it a little deeper. His eyes were filled with confusion. I pulled out the hairpin with a cold stare. As he fell, I caught him, and mimicking his own devoted act, whispered in his ear, word by word. You can't even act convincingly, a self-harm ploy without any actual self-harm. Did you really think it would work? There. We were husband and wife, after all. How could I not help you? I've given you a little push, with this cloak covering everything. Who will know I sent you on your way? How about it? A grand send-off to your death in the same devoted manner you love so much. Are you satisfied? With that, I gritted my teeth. With a muffled grunt, the prop arrow was driven straight through Samuel's abdomen. His blood covered my hands. I was so disgusted I just went all in, squeezing the wound. Does it hurt? Tell me. Your southern sweetheart's brilliant idea has actually gotten you killed at my hands. Will she be in more pain than you are right now? I'd love to make a bet. If I win, your whole family dies. If I lose, your whole family lives a life worse than death. What do you say? Samuel was terrified, trembling in pain, pointing at me, unable to speak. I shook my head with mock regret, then shouted at the surrounding guards. My husband has been shot. He is in grave danger. The assailant is so vicious. He must be torn to pieces. The attacker fled towards the lake. Force him into the water. Samuel's face went white when he heard I wanted the assailant dead, but he relaxed slightly when I only said to force him into the water. I saw his expression and smiled faintly. Your father can swim, can't he? He won't die just by falling into the lake, will he? Don't worry, I know what I am doing. I won't disappoint you. Samuel struggled to get up, but as I dug my fingers into his wound and twisted, the pain was too much. His eyes rolled back, and he fainted. I wiped the blood from my hands on his cloak and discreetly covered the gaping wound. Your retribution has come, my son. At the same time, Samuel's mother's voice came from behind. She threw herself forward, wailing, and pounded on Samuel's chest. You foolish boy, get up, she cried with such grief, playing the part of a heartbroken mother to perfection. But she didn't even notice that Samuel's dark cloak was soaked with blood, and she certainly didn't notice that each of her blows landed right on the wound I had made with my hairpin. It had all happened so suddenly. I hadn't had time to prepare much. The bit of poison on my hairpin was for self-defense, and might not have been enough to kill him. But after those few blows, it would be difficult for him to survive. Seeing his mother's acting become less and less convincing, her punches losing their force, I couldn't take it anymore. I pushed her aside and, in a perfectly coordinated act of grief, slapped Samuel across the face. Did you hear your mother? You unfilial son, wake up. Do you want to worry her to death? Get up. The sound of my slaps stunned his mother into silence. She even forgot her wailing, but when she met my tear-filled gaze, she let out a loud cry. My son, you cruel boy, wake up. Do you want to kill me? Have you forgotten how I raised you? All these years, you're good for nothing. Father never did a thing. Your brother was disobedient, your sister useless. I had to rely on you for everything. You were always the most obedient. To leave me like this is to take my life. My life is so bitter, she cried with more and more gusto, recounting her tragic life. And I listened quietly, echoing her sentiments with words of comfort, while discreetly stepping on Samuel's slightly twitching hand, letting his mother's heartfelt performance slowly crush his will to live. In my past life, it was because of this act that the story of Samuel dying to save me became known to all. For years after, whenever his family looked sad in public, my family and I were branded as ungrateful and cruel, and we were cursed and reviled. My mother, exhausted by the stress, fell ill and passed away early, and I was manipulated into fulfilling their every wish again and again. But this time, the one being emotionally blackmailed would not be me. The ones to live a life worse than death would not be my family. I waited until his mother had cried her fill, then stomped hard on Samuel's fingers. As he let out a muffled groan, I quickly threw back his cloak, pointed at his blood-soaked clothes, and said in a panic, "Mother, there is so much blood. If you keep crying, will he bleed to death?" "How can this be?" Samuel's mother trembled and collapsed to the ground. How could he have been so heavy-handed? But then she remembered it was all part of their plan, and she was relieved after all. Her useless husband was, for some reason, an expert archer. "It is fine. We'll go back to the estate and find the miracle doctor. My son will be fine." She thought I didn't know that even the so-called miracle doctor was in on it, but not only did I not stop her, I let her put Samuel in her own carriage. And just like in my past life, she slipped a fake death potion into his mouth when I wasn't looking. Fake death and escape. Who knows if that potion was arsenic mixed with honey? Just as in my past life, the doctor she had summoned gasped at the sight of the wound and declared that it was too late, that Samuel had lost too much blood and was beyond saving. He was even trembling in feigned panic. Samuel's mother nodded inwardly, satisfied with his performance, then threw herself onto the bed and began to wail. Every word was about how Samuel had died for me, how devoted he was, how foolish, how she was now left without support, how his brother and sister had lost their sibling, how cruel and heartless he had been. In my past life, it was her performance that had filled me with such guilt that I had immediately promised to provide them with a life of luxury. But this time, I pretended to be on the verge of fainting, collapsed onto a chair to rest, and refused to say a single word. When she had no more tears to cry, Samuel's mother glanced at me, who was still silent, and shook Samuel's hand. "Samuel, do you have any last words? If you do, your mother, brother, and sister will do everything in our power to fulfill them. You loved Harper so deeply. She will surely do everything to let you rest in peace." In my past life, at this moment, the unconscious Samuel had woken up and spoken his last words, begging me to take care of his family. But now his mother was screaming. His brother Damien was shaking him. His sister Alara was secretly pinching him. Yet he showed no reaction at all. I lost control again, lunged forward and slapped him twice. "Wake up! You promised to be with me forever, to love and protect me. How can you die? If you don't get up, I'll find another man before your grave is even dug. I'll take my new lover and throw your bones to the dogs. I'll use your skull to fill a latrine. You won't even find peace in death," I cried with such grief. My slaps merciless, playing the part of a distraught wife to perfection. It wasn't until Samuel's cheeks were swollen and blood was trickling from his mouth that his brother and sister finally grabbed me. "Sister-in-law, please don't be so upset. Brother wouldn't want to see you like this from the heavens. For his sake, you must live on." Smack! I slapped Alara across the face, sending her to the ground. A vicious glint appeared in her eyes. I shouted, "Are you cursing your brother to death? After I've been so good to you, he is still breathing, and you are already sending him to the heavens. Fine, a fine white-eyed wolf, guards. Bring all the gold and silver I gave to Alara's courtyard back to my family's estate. If she doesn't even want her brother, why should she have the luxuries his brother provided?" Alara's pupils contracted. I cut her off before she could speak. "Say one more word, and I'll take back this house too." She had a hard life in their family, living in the smallest courtyard, wearing old clothes. Even her marriage was to be a stepping stone for her brother. Her mother constantly called her a worthless girl, and her father even allowed the others to treat her like a maid. I had pitied her, given her protection, supported her with money, and even held banquets to find her a suitable husband. But while she was grateful on the surface behind my back, she hated me for insulting her with money, for using her as a foil and humiliating her in public. Even the future I had sought for her as a noble lady was, in her eyes, just my condescending charity. After Samuel's fake death, she would bring me medicinal soups and pastries every few days. I thought my sincerity had won her over, and I let down my guard, not knowing that those soups and pastries contained a slow-acting poison that was killing me. In this life, I was taking back my condescending charity. Let's see what becomes of this stepping stone, Alara, when her family is struggling. Sister-in-law, enough. The doctor, seeing Samuel vomit black blood, finally couldn't take it anymore and interrupted loudly. Samuel's wound has pierced his abdomen. He is in grave danger. The wound on his chest is poisoned, and the blows have accelerated the blood flow. The poison has now entered his organs. He is truly beyond saving. Instead of arguing, you should prepare for his funeral and give him some dignity. What? A fake death had become a real one. The three of them turned pale, looking at the barely breathing Samuel in disbelief. Samuel's mother's eyes darted around. Then she fell to her knees before me. Harper, my son was injured saving you. You can't just let him die. Your family is powerful. Your grandfather is the Grand Chancellor. There is no master you can't summon. Go, find someone to save my son. Go. Their family had once been noble, but they had fallen on hard times. By Samuel's generation, he was the only one with anything to offer, his handsome face. My family, since my mother's generation, had always taken in obedient live-in husbands, relinquishing power at court and living a peaceful, prosperous life. I had been taken by Samuel's good looks, and he by my family's wealth. It was a perfect match. He played the part of the virtuous husband to perfection, giving me his heart, treating me with tenderness and care. And because of his performance, his family received my family's support in many ways and lived a comfortable life in the capital. If Samuel died and I remarried, everything his family had would be gone. How could they not be anxious? That year your mother vomited blood and was in a coma for 3 months. You were able to save her. Why not try for brother? If you refuse to do your best, we will kill ourselves on the stone lions at your gate. We will stain your pristine family name with our blood. We will let the world see your ugly, ungrateful faces, threatening me with death. I hope that when the time comes to actually give their lives, they will be just as united. I suppressed a sneer and asked, there might be a way. Let me ask you, mother, brother, and sister, a clean death or a wretched life. Which do you choose? They chose the latter without hesitation, after all. As long as Samuel was still breathing, the marriage alliance between our families would remain, and they could continue to live off my family's wealth. But they were the ones who had said it. Samuel, your life of suffering is not my fault. A shamanistic healer from the borderlands. I had already sent for him on my way back to the estate. He just nodded slightly and poured a bowl of a foul-smelling concoction down Samuel's throat. The smell made Samuel's brow furrow. He kept trying to spit it out, but the healer forced it down and then clamped his mouth shut. He vomited and swallowed repeatedly. It was disgusting to watch. His mother couldn't bear it and asked weakly, "What is that? Why does it smell so bad?" The healer glanced at her. "The foul water from a corpse left for 49 days, mixed with scum scraped from the inside of a privy bucket? What? How can you feed him that? If I don't use poison to fight poison, how can he live? You should be thanking me for having such a fine thing to save his life. If you don't trust me, I don't have to save this dead man." His mother stammered, at a loss for words, and could only say weakly, "It was my mistake. Thank you for your trouble." The healer turned and took out 3 finger-length parasitic worms, stuffing them into Samuel's wound. "What is that?" the healer explained with contempt. "His meridians are all severed. He is beyond saving. I am putting these worms, which I have raised for decades, into his abdomen. They will eat the clotted blood and rotten flesh, and restore his blood flow, keeping him barely alive. Once they are inside, they can never be removed. They will gnaw on his bones and blood day and night, causing excruciating pain. But if you want to save his life, this is the only way. These worms are worth 1,000 gold pieces each, not a penny less. Save him or not, it is up to you. The three of them were speechless, but thinking that I was the one paying and that the entire family would benefit. They knew Samuel had to endure this suffering. They nodded. A life-saving medicine? It was just a flesh-eating parasite. Sure enough, as soon as the 3 worms entered his body, Samuel reacted to the immense pain. But because of the poison on my hairpin, he could no longer speak or move. He stared at me, his eyes blinking frantically, but his mother didn't understand. Why can't my son speak? The healer slapped his forehead. Didn't I tell you? He can only be kept barely alive. He can't speak or move. He will suffer the torment of the worms and the pain of the poison purging medicine, day and night, without end. Why didn't you say so sooner? To make me watch my son suffer. Isn't that just breaking my heart? To cut the flesh, one must use the knife of kinship. I was using Samuel's living hell to make them taste the helpless agony I had felt in my past life. I looked straight into Samuel's fearful and resentful eyes and said softly, "A clean death or a wretched life. You were the ones who chose to make him live in agony. If you can't bear it, then we can stop the medicine. He will be dead in 3 days. What do you think?" They were speechless. This path of certain agony was the one Samuel's own family had begged for, but it wasn't over. Now that the patient is awake, we can stitch up the wound. But the worms are delicate. We can't use anesthesia, so he will have to endure it. His mother staggered. In that case, why didn't you do it while he was unconscious? Are you deliberately torturing my son? She was right. I was deliberately making Samuel taste the pain of being cut open, of a living hell. The healer had his own explanation. If he didn't wake up, he was a dead man. Why would I waste my energy on a dead man? His mother was choked with grief but couldn't argue. When she met Samuel's hateful gaze, she spat out a mouthful of blood. "Get her out of the way. Don't delay me." His unstable mother was helped to a chair by her other children. Her face was pale, and she was gasping for breath. In so much pain she wished she could die on the spot. I gave the healer a look, and he took out a sharp knife and began to cut into Samuel's chest. Samuel convulsed in pain, sweat pouring down his face, a gurgling sound coming from his throat. It was a gruesome sight, and his family just stood by, watching as he was slowly flayed alive, enduring the agony of their own helplessness. Cutting, setting bones, stitching, it all happened in slow motion, and took a full hour. During that hour, Samuel fainted repeatedly, and each time, at my signal, the healer would revive him with a needle and continue the torture. By the end, Samuel was in tears, as numb as a lamb on the execution block. Only when the last stitch was in place did he look at me with pleading eyes. He was begging me, now that I had tortured him enough, to spare his loved ones. I smiled coolly and whispered in his ear, "Do you have any idea why I went to so much trouble to keep you alive?" His pupils contracted. He clearly understood. To keep him alive like a dead dog so he could watch the downfall of his entire family. Just as I turned away, his mother grabbed my sleeve. "Harper, Samuel is in this state because of you. He was always most worried about his brother, sister, and parents. You must take on the responsibility of caring for them." Finally, the emotional blackmail. I suppressed a sneer and asked, "Mother, why do you keep saying my husband was injured saving me? On your husband's death anniversary, at his grave, the person who attacked you, was it because of you, or was it somehow my fault?" Samuel's brother Damien glared at me, determined to pin the blame on me. I smiled. The next moment, a servant rushed in, shouting, "Bad news! Something has happened to the master. His body was found on the lake, mangled." "What?" Their eyes widened in shock. "What?" He was allowed to play the ghost and help Samuel fake his death. But he wasn't allowed to suffer the consequences and die a gruesome death. The servant explained sadly. "It seems someone blocked the master's path the other day. demanding he repay a debt. The master, relying on his numbers, had the person beaten and thrown onto the street. It is likely they came for revenge, threw the master into the lake, and he was killed by the 1,000-blade trap set for the thief. The 1,000-blade trap had been set the night before by the princess's estate after a servant stole something. The princess had ordered it so that the thief and the stolen goods would be torn to shreds. I don't know if the thief was shredded, but Samuel's father, who had gone into the water, certainly was. I looked past them at the trembling Samuel, a faint smile on my lips. Now he knew why I had forced his father into the lake. To be cut into 1,000 pieces, it was a fitting end for him. But it wasn't enough, I said calmly. If it was for revenge, they killed the father and injured my husband. We must report it to the authorities. The person who attacked my husband also escaped on the lake. If we investigate both cases together, we might get some answers. My words made the three of them turn pale. They knew that Samuel's father, after pretending to shoot his son, had panicked and fled into the lake, where he had been caught in the trap. But if there was a detailed investigation, their vicious plan would be exposed. Their wealth, their future, all their schemes would turn to dust. His mother suppressed her grief, her expression dazed. If we report it, he'll have to be taken for an autopsy. Your father has already died so horribly. He can't endure that kind of torment. Let the dead rest in peace. We should bury him as soon as possible. How can we do that? I looked at Damien and raised an eyebrow. You keep saying Samuel's injury was my fault. Then why was your father, who was traveling south for business, also turned into mincemeat? Was the attack aimed at me, or at your family? The identity of this creditor is key. And since it was a creditor, who does your family owe money to? Damien the gambler instantly paled. Enough, his mother shouted, discreetly shielding her favorite son. We will discuss this later. The most important thing now is to arrange your father's funeral. Anyone who disobeys will be unfilial to me and to your father. Harper, about your father's funeral. She looked at me expectantly, but I pretended not to understand. I quickly gave orders. You are right, Mother. The funeral will be disruptive to my husband's recovery. Guards, take my husband back to our estate. His mother's brow twitched. She blocked the way, and I asked with feigned confusion, My husband is barely alive. He almost died because of some creditor. Are you really going to make him arrange his father's funeral? You have your beloved son by your side, so you don't care about him. But he is my live-in husband. My family will care. Guards, back to the estate. The term live-in husband reminded her that I had no obligation to manage their family's affairs. She stepped aside, and I left with the half-dead Samuel without a backward glance. Part of their family's money had been sent to the south. The other part had been used to pay off Damien's gambling debts. And I had taken back everything I had given to Alara now. They couldn't even afford a decent funeral for the father. Naturally, they would try to get the money from me. They wanted to use my reputation to manipulate me. I used my money to start a rumor instead. The whole city was talking about how Damien's gambling addiction had not only cost him his family's fortune, but also his father's life and his brother's future. My family, in their anger, refused to even help with the funeral, after they were repeatedly turned away from my gate. My steward mocked them mercilessly. Your family only produced a live-in husband. Do you all intend to marry into my lady's family? You come to my lady for every little thing after all the money she has given you over the years. You can't even afford a funeral. Is she your family's blood bank for you to drain at will? You shameless outsiders don't care about your own daughter, but my family cherishes her. The steward made a huge scene. The passers-by all saw their pathetic state. In an instant, the story of their family trying to blackmail mine into paying for the funeral was all over the city. They had lost all face. Just as they were about to threaten suicide, a servant casually mentioned, "The young master is as good as a cripple. Whether he lives or dies depends on the young lady's mood. If you want him dead, just keep making a scene." They were caught. They could only scrape together some money and give the father a simple burial. Then they sent someone to the south to retrieve the money Samuel had hidden there. Feeling they had a way out, Damien boasted publicly, Harper is so heartless, the moment my brother fell. She turned her back on us and refused to help, even preventing us from seeing him. Such a venomous woman. My family scorns any association with her. When my brother recovers, if she tries to curry favor with us again, we won't even look at her if she kneels and begs. Oh, so you mean to sever ties with my family? Damien trembled. How did you get here? Does your family own this place? Is there a sign that says, "No Harpers allowed"? Damien was speechless. I continued coldly. Severing ties, is that true? His lips trembled, but with all his friends watching, he straightened his back and said recklessly, "So what if you are rich and powerful? My father was your father-in-law. You didn't even arrange his funeral. What kind of daughter-in-law are you?" Ilara also took the opportunity to humiliate me in public. You were the one who shamelessly tried to curry favor with our family. The moment you turned on us, you even took back the things you had given. Does anyone in the capital know how disgusting you are? If my brother is well, we will not hold it against you. If anything happens to him, my family will not let you go. I nodded and replied, "That is right. When I married your brother, besides the large sum of money, I also gave your family a house and a shop, not to mention all the expenses I covered. Now that we've severed ties, I should take back what belongs to my family. As for my husband, he is half dead because of his brother's gambling debts. I am a sentimental person. I would not abandon him at a time like this. Guards, take out the account books. Calculate how much your family has taken from me over the years. When we take back the house, we'll take back the money too. It is all in writing." The color drained from their faces. "Harper, are you really going to be so ruthless? Aren't you afraid brother will resent you? You were the ones who wanted to sever ties. How did I become the ruthless one? Speaking of your brother, if he is truly dissatisfied with me, I will send him back to your family with a divorce decree. You two can take care of him day and night. How about that?" They fell silent. I discreetly glanced at the crowd and someone shouted, "Is the second young master really living off his sister-in-law? It seems he doesn't dare to sign. If you can't bear to part with the wealth, just apologize to your sister-in-law. It is not that hard to admit you are a hypocrite. All talk and no action, so he is just a spineless coward who begs to survive." Damien was easily provoked. He gritted his teeth and pressed his thumbprint. "Do you think a man like me can be controlled by a woman? So what if we sever ties? My brother and I are blood. He would never abandon us. Besides, we have our own way of survival. We won't be pushed to a dead end by you." Was it their good sister-in-law from the south? A venomous beauty full of schemes. I hadn't met her in my past life. In this one, I was looking forward to it. Overnight, their family was back to where they started, without the money making father and the scheming Samuel to rely on. They were helpless. They hid in their old house, cursing me with impotent rage. Even Ilara, for saying a few words in support of Damien, was slapped several times by her mother. "If it wasn't for you offending her, would we be back in this old house? You are useless. I should have never given birth to you, you jinx." But after their anger subsided, they became quite pleased with themselves. Serena still has tens of thousands of taels from Samuel. If we get half of that for emergencies, what is to worry about? They had it all planned out. But unfortunately, the person they sent to get the money was intercepted by me. I pushed a stack of banknotes in front of him without even looking up. "Tell her that her family is bringing her back to the capital for a reunion. Once they're here, this 1,000 taels is yours." Distance makes it hard to control things. It is much easier to trap a dog in a cage. Sitting beside Samuel, I recounted my plans one by one. He was so agitated he soiled himself. I covered my nose in disgust and left. Lock the door. Such filth should not offend the eyes of others. A month later, the mother and daughter arrived in the capital with all their wealth. But in just 3 days, they were robbed, and all their money was gone. Seeing my family's money back in my hands, I laughed. She says the money is gone, just like that. Do you think his family will believe her? The dog-eat-dog show is about to begin. Sure enough, not long after, A servant told me that a distant cousin had come to their family for help. The cousin was delicate and lovely, with a face like a hibiscus flower, especially pitiful. Samuel's mother was overjoyed, especially with the 4 or 5-year-old boy. She held him and couldn't let go. Even though they were struggling, she forced Alara to pawn 2 bolts of fine fabric to hold a grand banquet for the mother and son. She even took Alara's courtyard for them. Alara cried in a side room for half a day, then came to beg for an audience with me, a fickle coward. Now that she had no other choice, she remembered how good I had been. Of course, I didn't see her, I said to the trembling Samuel. I hear Serena is quite resourceful, able to coax your family into sending half their fortune to the south. What do you think she'll target now that she is at a dead end? Your dear sister is not too stupid. She still knows to come to me for help. I guess she was going to tell me about Serena and her son, but I already knew. Your son is so clever and cute. The child you made me lose that year, if he had been born, he would have been just as cute. What to do? I am a wicked woman. You didn't let my child live, so I won't let your child live well either. I shook my head at the agitated Samuel with mock regret. I haven't even done anything yet, and your family is already at each other's throats, so impatient. Well, you are stuck in bed and won't see it anyway. I'll be kind and tell you all about it. After all, I had suffered for over a decade in my past life. A few years of a living hell for him was not too much to ask. After just a few days of peace, I heard that their family was in chaos. Samuel's mother and Damien didn't believe Serena's money was gone. They thought that since Samuel was useless now, she had saved it for herself. And Serena didn't believe Damien had gambled away half his fortune. She thought his mother was trying to keep Samuel's inheritance for her favorite son. One was full of schemes and wouldn't back down an inch. The other was furious and wouldn't give in. In their struggle, Samuel's mother fainted 3 times, but couldn't afford a doctor. Serena was beaten until she was bloody, but had no money for medicine. They finally believed that they were truly at a dead end, so I gave them a beautiful path to their deaths. Just like in my past life, the 60-year-old, ailing Marquis need a young woman for a warding-off death marriage. I had the news secretly delivered to their family. The old Marquis, though old, still had his tastes. He wanted a young, beautiful, and literate woman, preferably from a good family, and a legitimate daughter would be even better. The Marquis's family had made it clear, although the reward was 10,000 gold pieces, the bride would have to be buried with him. If she fails to cure the Marquise, it is her bad luck. She has delayed the Marquise's health, so she deserves to die. She will kneel for all eternity to atone for her sins. The humiliation was blatant. No respectable family in the capital would stoop so low. But their family was different. They were about to lose their lives. What did face matter? They set their sights on Alara. They were still trying to persuade her, not yet at the point of forcing her. So I gave them a little push. I smiled and said to my steward, "Those friends of the second young master, weren't they driven out of the capital by me? Invite them back." Samuel whimpered and wailed, but I couldn't understand a word. He was only a man because I pulled him out of the gutter and dressed him in human skin. Now, he is ungrateful. He can go back to being an animal. 3 days later, Damien's friends returned to the capital. The first thing they did was take him to a gambling den, where he stole a pair of Alara's earrings and gambled them away. He won 50 taels of silver and returned to the estate, boasting that he would restore their family's wealth. His mother pleaded with him, "You promised me you would quit gambling. You can't go back to your old ways." But Damien was no longer listening. He kept saying he knew what he was doing. Without his father's whip, Samuel's restraint, or my forceful methods, Damien was uninhibited. He threw himself into the gambling den and refused to even come home. Small wins no longer satisfied his inflated ego. He used my family's name and his status as a young master to get into the second-floor private rooms. But once he stepped in, there was no turning back. In just a few hours, he had lost the 10,000 taels of silver he had won, along with his own hands and feet as collateral. When the gambling den came to my family for the money, I looked at them blankly. What, you don't know that he has severed all ties with me? I showed them the signed document. They were speechless. When they couldn't get the money, they were going to take Damien's hands and feet. That is when his family remembered me. His mother cried at my gate, begging me to save her precious son. Damien also softened his attitude, apologizing and begging his sister-in-law to save him. I didn't even show my face. When my servants drove them away, they shouted, "You ungrateful wretches! A few days ago you severed all ties with my lady." The master was so angry he spat up blood, and insisted my lady have nothing more to do with you, and now you have the nerve to come and borrow money. Pay back the thousands you already owe my family first. They refused to leave and were beaten away by the servants. This time, with no other choice, Samuel's mother made up her mind. She said to Alara with a vicious look, "You are going whether you want to or not. This family only has one heir left. Even if he gets into terrible trouble, I have to protect him. And your little nephew needs to go to school. That all costs money. As an aunt, you should be planning for your family. The Marquise's family is wealthy. You might not suffer if you marry into it. Even your nephew can study at the Marquise's academy with the sons of noble families. Wouldn't his future be bright?" Alara knew she had no choice and pretended to accept her fate. But that night, she packed her things and tried to run away. But just as she opened the door, Serena was standing there with a smile. "It is late. Where are you going, sister? Your nephew misses his auntie and wants to sleep with you." Serena snatched the small bundle from her. With a clang, the closing door shattered Alara's last hope. Fearing Alara would run away and they would lose the wealth that was within their grasp, the mother and daughter, along with Samuel's mother, guarded her closely. It wasn't until the Marquise's family came to pick her up that they relaxed, as if they could see the wealth and glory waving at them. They even ignored Alara's hate-filled red eyes. Damien even put on the air of an older brother and said, "Don't worry, when our family is well, when I am well, you will have my full support. Even in the Marquise's estate, no one will dare to bully you. You like earrings, don't you? When I get the 10,000 taels, I'll pick out the finest set for you and have it sent to the Marquise's estate. I'll let the whole city see what a bright future and great wealth my sister has." But I had tricked them. The Marquis had indeed promised 10,000 gold pieces. But fearing criticism, it was only for a woman who willingly married him to ward off death. After a small sedan chair took the tearful Alara away, her family waited expectantly for the money. But the steward frowned. "What money? That money is for the bride. What does it have to do with you? Are you trying to sell your own daughter? Our master despises heartless people. Don't tell me you are." Samuel's mother's body went limp. Damien even tried to rush in and demand the money, but was beaten back by the servants. But it wasn't over. I nodded to my men in a dark alley, and a moment later, their small gate was kicked open. "Today is the last day to repay the debt." "Where is the money?" Samuel's mother, clutching at her last hope, chased the sedan chair for 3 streets, falling and getting bloody. But she didn't stop. "My dear daughter, please save your brother. I beg you, I promise. From now on, you'll have everything he has, okay? Please save your brother. Save me." The old matron asked if they should stop. Alara, holding the heavy stack of banknotes, didn't even look back. The moment I stepped out of that door, I had no family. There is no need to pay them any mind. Samuel's mother watched as Alara entered the Marquise's estate, and she was held back by the cold clubs of the guards, her screams unanswered. When she returned home, the creditors, seeing their hope was gone, swung their clubs. With a crack, they broke Damien's arm. Before his screams could stop, another club fell. Samuel's mother watched as 4 swift blows left her favorite son a cripple. She couldn't take it anymore, spat up a mouthful of blood, and fainted. "Husband, what to do? They are so pitiful. Should I let them die or let them live a life worse than death? And your dear childhood sweetheart? She only has eyes for money. She doesn't even have a thought for you." I pressed my fingers on the scar on Samuel's chest and ground them in. "Your devotion was wasted on a dog. It would have been better if I had just ripped out your heart. Samuel suffered day and night, a living hell. He was fully aware of what was happening to his family, yet he was powerless. That powerlessness was exactly what I had felt in my past life, when I was consumed by hatred but was dying, unable to kill him myself. He knew I would not be merciful. He could not bear the consequences. He pleaded with his eyes for me to give him a quick death. I shook my head. You are repaying a debt. You have no right to choose. Samuel's mother, overcome with grief, was bedridden. Damien, with his broken limbs, was a cripple. Everything fell on Serena, but Alara's warding off death marriage was a success. The day after the ceremony, the old marquise could sit up. She became a hero in the marquise's household, cherished by the old man Serena. Knowing that Alara hated her, didn't dare to ask her for help directly, she sent her son to intercept Alara at a pavilion, where he knelt and begged her to come home to see her dying mother. She naively thought she could still trick Alara out of her money with kinship. Alara smiled and nodded, took her son's hand, and walked towards the lake. But she discreetly glanced at Serena hiding behind a willow tree. Just as Serena relaxed, Alara shoved the boy into the icy water. In the dead of winter, the boy's thick cotton clothes quickly absorbed water, and he sank to the bottom. Serena screamed and rushed forward but was held down by Alara's guards. Alara looked down at her with a vicious expression. This child is so careless to fall into the lake. In the dead of winter, his life is in danger. I can't just let you watch him die. Please wait a moment. The rescue guards will be here soon. Serena screamed curses. That is your own nephew. How could you do this to him? You will die a horrible death. To harm an innocent child, you will be struck by lightning. Alara laughed. An innocent child. He was the only one who knew I was running away, but he ran and told you. He wanted to go to a good school, wear fine clothes, live a life of luxury, so he wouldn't let me leave. He said, Auntie, this is your fate. You must accept it. So now, I am making him, and you, and the entire family accept this fate of having no heirs. So what if I am a woman? I am the one who has the last laugh. I am the one who is living the best life. I am the one who is triumphant. Serena watched as the limp body was pulled from the lake. She cried hysterically, but Alara laughed like a madwoman. So they can cry like dogs in front of me too. But before, I was the one they treated like a dog. Isn't this what they call karma? Nephew, how laughable. Ask my brother if he dares to acknowledge him. Ask the Chin family if they would agree. Something that should never have been born should have died long ago. Every word was like a dagger to the heart. Hate reddened Serena's eyes. She pulled out a hairpin and charged at Alara, but just as the hairpin was about to pierce her, a guard drew his sword and blocked it, severing her right arm. Blood splattered on Alara's face. Hate made her eyes terrifyingly red. You dare to kill me. If it wasn't for you, we could have lived a comfortable life relying on the Chin family. The men Harper had chosen for me were either rich or talented. But you had to make my brother fake his death, making him live a life worse than death, getting my father killed, and making Harper hate us. It was you. You ruined our family. This bitch is so good at harming people. Smash her seductive face and throw her out. Serena, injured and crippled, fainted and was thrown onto the street, where no one would pick her up. Alara's guard said righteously, She tried to assassinate you. This is a lesson to her, a warning to others. If anyone else dares to challenge the concubine, they will suffer the same fate. Alara had finally tasted the power she held in her hands. When we met across the street, she said haughtily, I don't need to beg you. I have obtained the same wealth and luxury as you, Harper. I am much more capable than you. With 10,000 taels of silver, who am I inferior to? I lowered my eyes and laughed to myself. You have the money, but you won't have the life to spend it. It is all in vain. The next moment, the Marquise's steward rushed over. Bad news. The Marquise has passed away. The lady has ordered the concubine Alara to be brought back immediately to prepare for the funeral sacrifice. Ilara's body swayed. She looked at me in disbelief. In my past life. The Marquis had a brief recovery, then suddenly passed away. At that time, the warding-off death bride had also, like Ilara, suddenly fallen from a high building, her body shattered. Ilara, like her, was dragged away, crying and screaming, refusing to accept her fate, even frantically begging me, "Sister-in-law, save me, save me. You were always the best to me, the most sincere. You were the only one who told me not to devalue myself, to live my own life, to be brilliant," I remembered. "I did all this because I remembered your words. Sister-in-law, give me a chance. I truly know I was wrong. I will change. I will be 10,000 times more sincere to you. Please, save me." She prostrated herself on the ground, clinging to my white skirt, refusing to let go. I bent down and finger by finger pried her desperate hope away. "It is too late, Ilara. I won't fall in the same place twice." In her despair, she was dragged back to the Marquise's estate. What awaited her was a bowl of poison and an eternity of kneeling before the Marquise's coffin to atone for her sins. I brushed the dust from my clothes and returned to my estate to tell Samuel the good news. "What do you think your little childhood sweetheart will do to your family? I am so looking forward to it. A white lotus turning black. It must be quite a show." Samuel started to vomit black blood again. So useless. It was sickening. A few days later, I heard that Serena had secretly sold the old family house, and for 10 taels of silver, had thrown Samuel's mother and Damien onto a dilapidated estate outside the capital, then run off with the money. She was a resourceful one, after all, unscrupulous in her pursuit of wealth and glory. All schemes and no heart. To be honest, if she weren't my enemy, I might even admire her. But after 2 lifetimes of enmity, I could not spare her. She didn't get far before I intercepted her. We finally meet. "Hello, Serena." She trembled as if she had seen a ghost. I approached her step by step, my smile warm. "Thank you for helping me get rid of that family. You've saved me a lot of trouble now. It is your turn." She was terrified. "It was all your scheme." "Of course. You didn't really think that wicked people get their just deserts from heaven, did you?" "Of course, I had to collect the blood debt myself." She tried to run, but with a thud, a club struck her knee, and she fell to the ground. I looked down at her pathetic state and said with regret, "It is a pity. There aren't many heartless people like you left, and today there will be one less." My maid searched her and took all her gold and silver. Only then did I say with a sigh, "You are Samuel's most beloved. How can you abandon his family in their time of need? His mother is bedridden, and Damien is a cripple. They have no way to support themselves but to beg. Since that is the case, a family should stick together. You can go join them." My servants understood, and amidst her screams, broke her legs with their clubs. Leaving her one hand to beg with was my final act of kindness. The wind was strong. I stood under the eaves and smiled at the emaciated, rotting Samuel. "You and I, we have a bet with no winners or losers. But from the moment I sat at the table, I refused to lose. So they are the ones who live a life worse than death. They are the ones who will die with regrets. Are you satisfied?" That night, I had him. Now with his memories of his past life restored, sent to the dilapidated temple where his family was staying. Unfortunately, he was now a rotting, stinking mess, a world away from the handsome gentleman he once was. He was overcome with emotion at the family reunion, tears streaming down his face. It was a moving scene, but his family, repulsed by the sight of him, did not recognize him. After the guards left, they complained that the rotting man was stinking up their shelter, and without a second thought dragged him out of the temple. In the desolate mountains, in a raging blizzard, with hungry wolves prowling, Samuel, unable to speak or move, was pushed onto the path to the underworld by his own beloved family, to die in his clearest moments of consciousness, and to die at the hands of the very people he trusted and loved. Most that was the final revenge I gave him. The backyard was empty. My mother urged me, "Why don't you take another live-in husband?" I scoffed. "For what? To scheme and take everything from me." "It was just a man. With a flick of my wrist, I could summon 3 or 5 obedient and sensible young men from my courtyard of male companions. All young and strong, their eyes filled with a devotion that could move one to tears. That was the good thing about young men. They had a lot of energy, and they were willing to spend it on me. Which one of them didn't do everything in his power to please me? Which one of them wasn't 1,000 times better than a scheming, live-in husband?